Okay, so we are live. So we can wait for people to come in. We still have 4 minutes.
All right.
So how's been your week so far?
Pretty good. It's been busy with my consulting client, so that's good. And then I've really been trying to work on kind of longer term things while I've got the time. So I am almost this weekend. I will pass the halfway mark of my new book writing.
Wow,
So that's
that's
exciting.
incredible. Well,
Yeah, and
people are starting to join us. So good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. We still have 4 more minutes to go. So we're just chatting away here. If anybody wants to say hello and let us know from where you are connecting with us, we'll be more than happy to say personalized hellos.
I love personalized hellos.
Yeah, right?
They're so much better than generic ones.
Well, we have Romina from Buenos Aires. Hi, Romina.
Hi, Romina.
Yeah, I'm so happy that the tweet that I sent out, Tamara from Aruba.
Oh, Aruba. I'm
Oh my
officially jealous.
God. Tamara, you don't know how bad weather we have right here, right now. We're just thinking about how beautiful the beach in Aruba is.
Yes. I think in Chicago today it's going to be like 45 degrees and it's going down to freezing tonight. So,
Yeah,
not
right. You
excited
guys
about that.
are like having that vortex, climax vortex. It's well in New York, is it
In the
too?
East Coast, yeah, in the East Coast they're getting, I think, some snow even, but we're just getting some lousy kind of cold weather.
So, Tamara, we are right now thinking about the warm weather and the beaches in Aruba.
My goodness. Good
Yeah,
idea, Romina. Yeah, next webinar we're going to hold from Aruba. That sounds like
yeah, right. Who else is there? I mean, I see 9 people there, so motivating people to come and say, "Okay, Tamara, keep some sunshine for you until further notice." Yes, do that. Thank you, Tamara. We love that idea. We love that idea. Yeah, weather, 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 weather. Well, let's see, 2 more minutes and we'll start. In the meantime, who haven't joined a webinar from Punta Cana Wellness before, I would like to welcome you all and let you know that Punta Cana Wellness, it's it's a wellness travel portal that we are dedicated to promote wellness tourism in the Caribbean and Latin America. And we do so by providing business services to the tourism industry, not only through consultancy or doing listings in our portal, but we also provide education. And part of that education is this series of webinars that we're calling While We're Inside Home. Well, we're in home since we were trying to do events and conferences where we can see each other and motivate each other and applaud to each other. So now we're doing virtually. And part of those educations is having guests like Dan. Dan had the experience last year to went to one of his conference in inbound marketing from HubSpot, and I was amazed. I got out of there saying, "Oh my God, whatever I thought I knew about customer experience, I didn't do anything. I didn't do nothing." So since then, I am a fan. Since then, I follow him on social media. Since then, I tried to get him into the conference, and well, COVID didn't allow us to do the conference anyway. But hopefully, for next year, we'll do something that Dan will be involved. This man here is a customer experience expert, is the author of the program called the Customer Experience Maker. And it's like I put in the landing page, Dan it's a consultant for 500, 300 Fortune companies, and people like NBC look after him to advise and stuff like that. So take advantage of this conversation. That is going to be around an hour. It's going to be very conversational. You guys are open to send your questions in. and we're going to do everything that we can to answer all. If we cannot answer all, we'll try our best to get back to you via email, or you can check and Dan's website and all those kind of things. Oh, thank you so much for Manguila, Estasia. Hi, Carol from Dominican Republic. She's hi, Carol. Hola, Carol. Otra Dominicana, another Dominican. So that's great. So Dan, be free to introduce yourself to talk about a little about you.
Well, hola, buenos dias. Nice to meet everybody. My Spanish is not as good as your English, but I did take Spanish all the way through most of college, so I'm still pretty decent at reading it and understanding it. It's the whole speaking thing that is a little tougher when you don't have practice. But my name's Dan Gingiss, and as Soribel said, I am a customer experience speaker, consultant, author, and podcaster. And so basically that means I live and breathe customer experience. It's my passion. And I love working with companies and other organizations to help create remarkable experiences. My belief is that a remarkable experience, and remarkable literally means worthy of remark, worthy of discussion. A remarkable experience can be your best sales and marketing tool, because when other people are talking about you, it is so much more credible and authentic than when you're talking about you, which is why I loved listening to Sorabel introduce me rather than me have to talk about me, because that's way more authentic, right? So when we can get people talking about us, they're our best marketers. And we know that in almost every industry, customers look for, whether it's ratings and reviews or recommendations from friends or posts on social media, this is how we choose who we want to do business with in almost every industry. And so we have to make sure that what people are saying about us is really positive. And we had a great saying when I used to work at McDonald's, that the goal is to make the brand lovers louder than the haters, because you're always going to have haters. We can't get rid of the haters. Unfortunately, I do not have a magic solution for that. But what we can do is we can drown them out with love, with positivity. And when we create positive experiences, we know from research that people are even more willing to share positive experiences than they are negative ones. The problem is that most of us don't have very many positive experiences with companies or brands or hotels or resorts, at least not to the extent that we want to tell people about it. So if we can fix that, if we can create experiences that people want to talk about, we can stand out from the crowd, and we can also make those haters, at least if we don't make them go away, we can at least overwhelm them.
You mentioned something that caught my attention when you say remarkable, open to a discussion. When you mentioned that, I'm thinking about the individuality of each client. I mean, everybody, like I put out there in social media, and we had a great response on the Twitter and everything. When I was trying to get people to come into the webinar, I said, like, everyone experience, even that we are on the same situation, our experience on that situation is different. It becomes to an individual and individuality of each of one. So when you say remarkable, I'm thinking, do you mean that that is not a cookie cutter experience? Like you as a consultant, you go into a business and you see what are they doing and how they're operating. I mean, is it cost effective to have one for each individual, or having one that goes to one size fits all? I mean, if you want to make it remarkable, how that plays around?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that there has to be a balance. Certainly, the bigger you get, you can't be personalized for everybody. Think about a company like McDonald's, right? I mean, billions of customers. You cannot be personalized for every one of them. But you can create items on your menu that allow people to customize it the way they like it, right? You can go in and order your hamburger with no ketchup if that's how you want to eat it, and they'll do that for you. So it's customized, but not maybe personalized. I think that you referenced social media. I mean, one of the ways that we can personalize is by serving people in the channel of their choice rather than the channel of our choice. And one of the things that always bothers me is when I see organizations on social media, somebody tweets at them or posts on Facebook or Instagram, and the first thing they say is, would you please call us or email us? And and that bothers me because we would never do that to somebody who called us or emailed us, right? We would never pick up the phone and say, "I'm sorry, could you please tweet us instead?" Right? I mean, it's so goofy, right? But yet, we
Yeah.
do that to people on social media all the time. We say, "Nope, we don't want to serve you on this channel. We want to serve you on our channel." And trust me, if somebody's tweeted at you, they know they can call you, they know they can email you. They've chosen to use social media. And at least when I got started in this business, social media was the channel of last resort, right? It was I didn't get my answer on the phone, or they never responded to my email or whatever. Now I'm really mad, so I'm going to go to social media. But what happened over time is that people started figuring out that social media is a great channel to interact with companies. It's easy. You don't have to wait on hold. It's usually pretty fast. So social has become the channel of first resort for a lot of people. I will tell you personally that when I want to talk to a company, the very first thing I do is go to Twitter and see if I can send them a direct message. Because if I can do that, that's my first step, because it's easy, it's private. They like that it's private, right? So I'm not going out in public and bashing them or anything. I don't have to sit on hold. We know, especially right now, hold times in almost every industry are so long. Who wants to sit on hold? So if you treat social media as a channel of first resort and you realize that people, are there because they want to be, that's a way to personalize, right? That's a way to say, hey, I hear you, Soribel. You came to me in Twitter. I'm not going to ask you to go jump through a hoop or go to a different channel. Just like if you called me, I wouldn't ask you to tweet. I'm going to try to serve you where you want to be served. And that's the kind of mentality that makes people feel like you're customizing to them, but you're able to do it at scale because it's not really personalized for every single person. Does that clarify?
It makes tremendous amount of sense. And you touch a point that is about communication. And, us as marketeers, we use several tools to get that communication. We have the customer service channels or the guys over the phone. We have the social media with, responding to Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram messages. What happens with emails? Because, we received, since, to put it in perspective, since this pandemic started, there's so much email coming into my inbox from so many different ways that I'm like, I don't even remember when I touch base with you and you're sending me in communications. Like, people like I probably spoke with them maybe 2 years ago or something like that. I'm receiving emails now. And I'm like, I don't even remember who you are.
Well, it reminds me of a few years ago when we had all of the privacy rule changes that started in Europe and then kind of circulated through the world. And most of our inboxes were filled with companies giving us new privacy policies that we didn't care about, right? And sure enough, when the pandemic started, we all got emails, tons of emails from pretty much every company that ever had our email address. They decided they needed to send us an email. And unfortunately, at the beginning, all those emails were the same, right? They were, well, we're going to enhance our cleaning procedures. And if you have any questions, here's the website for the Center for Disease Control. And everybody connected us to the same website and told us about the same cleaning procedures. And that was disappointing to me because I always look at times like this as an opportunity to stand out and be different. And I think way too many companies did what I call just check in the box, right? Oh, we have to send this email, so we're just going to send it and then we can be done with it. And the companies that were smart figured out a way to send an email that actually provided value. So I got an email from Charles Schwab, which is an investment company, and they didn't talk to me about cleaning their offices, and they didn't direct me to the CDC. What they said to me was, we know that it must be scary to be investing in this volatile market. Here's some resources to help you through this difficult time. Wow. Like that is great. And it's very relevant to what they provide for me, right? It's not, they're not giving me advice on washing my hands, which I don't need from my investment firm, right? Yeah. They're giving me advice on investing, which is exactly what I needed. And they were able to identify the emotion that I was feeling, fear, right, about volatility. So I read it and I'm like, yes, you're speaking to me, even though they're not speaking directly only to me, but they were able to understand their customer and keep within their lane. And I think keeping within your lane is really important as well. Now, in your industry, I want to give an example that was actually pre-COVID, but I think it's a really neat example. We talked about this on our podcast. So I have a weekly podcast called Experience This. And all we do is tell customer experience stories, and it's so much fun. They're all positive stories, and usually you can find at least one that'll inspire you in your business. And my co-host Joey does not drink, and he was at a resort, and the very first day, they came to him and they said, can we get you a beverage? Would you like some wine? Would you like some beer? Whatever. And he said, well, I'm sorry, I don't drink alcohol, but I'll have a lemonade. He said that for the rest of his stay, every other employee knew that he didn't drink, and he was not asked for an alcoholic beverage again.
Wow.
Now that is a great way to personalize, right?
Yeah.
Is that and it's not that hard, right? Is that they're there's only so many people in the resort, and they can probably figure out, the tall, handsome guy with the wife and the 2 kids and the whatever, that guy doesn't drink, right? And so, but he really noticed that because obviously, I guess, I do drink, so I'm not sure I can completely relate, but I'm assuming if you don't drink, that at some point it gets annoying if you continue to be, asked. Would you? It's like if you're a vegetarian and and they come.
I was gonna mention that experience when I took a year off of meat, like completely of meat for cleansing purposes, and it was incredible. All my travels, I travel a lot for work, so all my travels, I tried to make the clarification where I could on meals that I was vegetarian, and just out of a 10, probably 2 really got it.
Yep.
It was it was very frustrating even to get like the food confused. And I was like, but one happened to me, and it was locally, not even traveling. I went to, well, it's a chain that we know here in the United States, Shake Shack, in Penn Station. I had the experience that I asked for the mushroom burger, which is a mushroom, portobello mushroom with cheese and lettuce and tomato and, the mushroom. And I asked for the mushroom burger. Thank God I didn't even bite on it. I just took it and I look at it. I'm like, that's meat. And my friend, my coworker, she was like, no, it looks like the mushroom. I'm like, no, I know the mushroom. I know how to make a mushroom burger at home. So I really know. They changed it right away, but I had to wait 2 times the waiting time for my food. And it's something that unfortunately is the experience that I remember from them. It's not how good the mushroom burger was that I got it, or how the shake that they gave me, the vanilla shake ice cream that they gave me as like what compensation or whatever they want to call it, was it. I just remember the experience and getting back to them and had it to wait another half an hour more for my meal because they got the wrong order.
And look what's happening right now. You're telling people about it, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that's what happens. The stories that we share the positive ones and the negative ones. The stories we don't share are the average ones, right? Nobody says, I think if I remember my Spanish right, así, right? Nobody shares the so-so story, right? You don't ever say, let me tell you about this perfectly average restaurant I went to yesterday. Right. So those are the stories we don't share. And unfortunately, that's most of the experiences we have are not shareable. But we share on the edges. We share great experiences and lousy experiences. And unfortunately, so our goal in business is to make sure there are more great experiences than lousy ones. And I'll give you another example that is so easy, and it should be very relevant for your audience. Every time somebody checks in to a resort, one of the first things that has to happen is they have to show some identification. At that point, you now know that person's birthday because they just showed it to you. Now, they may not be there to celebrate a birthday at this moment, but this is now a data point that you have that you can return back to. You could send them a card, you could send them an email, you could send them a gift card to come back and visit you if their birthday's in 6 months. Or if they happen to be there and it is their birthday, wish them a happy birthday. My friend did an experiment once where on his birthday he was traveling, and I think he ended up showing his ID to 6 or 7 people that day, and only one of them even noticed it was his birthday. So these are not hard things to do, especially when, as part of your operations already, I'm handing you my ID and I'm telling you when my birthday is, right? Everybody feels great when somebody wishes them a happy birthday. Now, funny thing is, that experience for me is very different because, as it turns out, Sorabel, I don't think I've ever shared this with you. My birthday is actually Christmas Day, December 25th.
Oh, okay. But the 25th?
The 25th, yes. So I actually do. It's funny for me to see how many people, when I show them my ID, especially at the airport, how many people point out, "Oh, you're a Christmas baby," and I do get that a lot. But you know what? It should be everyone. It should be every single person I give my ID to, because because that's what they're looking at. They're looking at the details of the ID. So those are just that's a great way that for no cost and for very little effort, you can personalize the experience without having to spend a ton of money or anything like that. We took my son to a steak restaurant in Chicago for his birthday. He turned 14. And I booked on OpenTable, and I mentioned on OpenTable that we were celebrating a birthday. Well, we walk in the door, and the first thing that happens is the maitre d' hands my son a birthday card, like in an envelope with his name on it. And I'm like, that's amazing. Like that, I've never had that happen in a restaurant before, right? I mean, every restaurant will give you a slice of cake with a candle on top at the end. But to give a birthday card was so neat. So we kind of knew during the meal that they weren't going to do a slice of cake with a candle. Like you just could sort of tell it was this kind of place. And sure enough, at the end of the dinner, they brought out a beautiful box of 4 handmade chocolates that they had made in the restaurant. And instead of a candle, they had a sparkler. So, it's doing this.
Yeah, the fountain sparkle thing. Yeah.
And I mean, just the difference between a candle and a sparkler is a huge experience difference, right? And so that's a way that you can take something that most restaurants do, which is if you tell them it's your birthday, they're going to recognize your birthday, and you make it from normal to
extraordinary,
memorable, or from ordinary to extraordinary. Exactly.
Yeah.
So those are little things, and yeah, maybe it cost them a little bit more because they had to buy the card and whatever, but it's not like it cost them hundreds of dollars more.
Laszlo has a comment, which is probably a note and discussion point. He says, not an easy task to discuss with clients the difference between extraordinary, enchanting, or only memorable experiences, not necessarily being the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I kind of see where you're going, and I like to define extraordinary as just a little bit better than ordinary. So if you remember what I said before, most experiences are así, right? Most experiences are in the middle, and they're not memorable. So all we have to do is a little bit better than that, a little better than ordinary, to make it so that it is memorable. And I think a lot of people are afraid that, the only way I can make your birthday celebration memorable at my resort is if I, give you a private fireworks show and a bottle of expensive champagne and all. No, that's way too much. You don't have to do that. You can look for little things to stand out and just be better than ordinary. And I think the way to do that is to look at your experience and say, is this what everybody else is doing? Am I just checking the box? Right? Just like all those people that sent out emails about cleaning procedures. Am I just checking the box? Speaking of cleaning procedures, by the way, and feel free to steal this one U.S. airline, Delta, instead of telling people about their cleaning procedures, they actually shot a video and they brought people into the plane to show them the fogger machine that they were using to disinfect the whole plane. And the difference between showing me and telling me is so big. Right? I'm sure they're using the same process that every other airline's using, but they took the time to show me. All right. That's the difference between ordinary and extraordinary. And yeah, it maybe cost them a little more effort to shoot a video versus just to send me a description in an email. But it's not like Again, it's not like they're shooting off fireworks. Think about
Yeah.
the firework example, and there's an awesome story in the customer experience world, and I may have told you this one before. I think it was a Four Seasons. I'm not sure, but it's one of these very high end chain hotels, and it's the story. I don't even know if the story is true, by the way. It's like a legend, right? And it's a story of this couple who wanted to dine at this resort. I think there was like a floating restaurant, and the problem was that the woman was in a wheelchair, and so she couldn't get to the floating restaurant. And the husband complained, and they were all upset that they couldn't eat at this restaurant. So overnight, the manager of the hotel brings in a construction crew and builds a dock. And the next morning, he meets the couple at breakfast and hands them a personalized invitation to come join them at dinner. And they say, well, what do you mean we can't get to the restaurant? And then they wheel out this woman to the dock that they had built, and tears flow and everything. And it's this amazing story, right? The problem is most of us don't have the money to build a dock overnight, right? So
Exactly.
it's a great story, but it's not one that I tell very often, except to use as an example like this, because it's not practical for people. And so when I share examples, I put them through three filters. They have to be simple, practical, and inexpensive. Because if they're not those three things, I know you're not going to do them. Right. And so if I tell your audience, go build a dock for every customer that's in a wheelchair, you're going to say, yeah, thanks, but I can't do that. But if
Hmm.
I say, look at everybody's idea and just note down their birthday, you're like, well, that's pretty simple, pretty practical, and it isn't going to cost me any money. So that's something I
Yeah.
can.
Even the idea that even that what you said is still this one from Delta. I mean, right now we are in a situation that tourism has to generate confidence again. Um, yes, we are in economical downtown, economical crisis, but we are actually looking to see what's next. Like there are people already planning their vacations for within 6 months. There are studies out there that are saying that 50% of Americans, for example, are already looking into 6 month travel, where they're going to go within 6 months. So that gives me an opportunity to take a phone and make a video of what I'm doing, like how is going to be my next sitting in my restaurant, how is going to be my food distribution, how the rooms are going to be clean. Grab a phone, make the video, put it in IGTV, Instagram, and it might not cost you anything, but it will allow people to start seeing what you're doing. We've been hearing more and more and more about, oh, the beach is waiting for you, stay home, we're waiting for you here. And I keep saying, like, well, you're waiting for me for what? Like, you're waiting for me for what? Because you gotta let me know more than this. You
Yes,
have to let me know more than that.
100%. I love what you said. First of all, don't worry about shooting it on a cell phone. It does not have to be a perfectly produced video. It'll be more authentic if it's shot on a cell phone anyway, so don't worry about that. But the other thing you mentioned, and I just want to be real clear with your audience, the future, when people go back to traveling, it is going to be about a single word. You can print out this word, put a poster in your office so that you can look at it every day. Safety.
Yep.
That's what people are going to care about. Am I going to be safe? Is my family going to be safe? It's not, am I going to have a good time? Am I going to get a good tan? Is the food going to be good? It is, am I going to be safe? So focus on safety and build your communication around convincing people that they are going to be safe coming to visit you. And that, because absent that, they're not going to come visit you. Right. And no matter how nice the beach is, if it's not safe at the beach, we're not going. Right. If your beach has sharks, I'm not going. Okay.
No.
And, so similarly, it is all about safety. And I think this is going to be true in restaurants. It's going to be true in all of travel, certainly airplanes, hotels, casinos, any of those. How am I going to be convince me that I'm going to be safe, and maybe even more importantly, that my family and my kids are going to be safe? And if you can do that, you've got my attention. And I think that, what's different about that is everybody's going to be trying to do that, which is going to be
Yes,
complicated. So you're
exactly.
going to have to stand
That
out.
was gonna be my next question. Like,
Yeah.
okay, wait, because everybody's gonna be talking about that. So,
Yes.
what exactly is that you are thinking that might cut the clutter and make it stand out? Because
Well, you said
okay,
one. I mean, definitely video, I think, is huge, right? Show me, don't tell me. Absolutely. It's also, I want to see some creativity. I want to see you thinking outside of the box. I remember you and I had a conversation in preparation for the webinar about, you were talking about buffets, right? Food buffets. And I said, I'm not sure that we're going to have buffets anymore. I think buffets may be a thing of the past, because there may not be a way to make a buffet safe. And so, okay, so why don't we show a video of you of what you guys are doing about that? And even if it's somebody hauling away your buffet, that may make me feel better, right? So, I mean, but I think thinking you got to think beyond just showing me with somebody with a rag and a spray bottle. Like that isn't enough. And I think in particular with the resort industry or hotel industry is, you know, you're in a room, you're sleeping in it, your head's on a pillow, you're as intimate as possible, right? And yet you know the night before somebody else was doing the same thing. And so that, especially in today's environment, is going to make people nervous. And you've got to, you know, anything you can do to convince me that you're doing absolutely everything you can. And again, try to be creative about it, even if you have to go a little bit overboard, right? I mean, maybe you always switch the pillowcases. Maybe you switch the pillows, and there's some process by which you now can, you know, disinfect the pillows, or you put them in the dryer at high heat, or whatever it is you're doing. I don't really care. Just show it to me, and it's going to
yeah,
feel
that,
better.
right now it's about the showing part. Right now it's about you show me that you're really doing this. I mean, you know, I'm a firm believer that from now on, a note saying that you clean my room will not cut it. A simple note
Yep.
leaving it on my desk telling me that you clean the room will not cut it. There
Yep.
has to be another way of reinforcement, another way of making me feel safe, another way of making me feel that you're really taking care of me and everyone around me, so I'm safe.
Yeah, and here's one that I predict is going to change. We'll see. I actually think, you know, we obviously use all of our senses, especially when we're on vacation, right? I actually think that the scent of the room is going to make a big difference. And I think what's going to be different from the past is that chemical scent of cleaner is going to actually be comforting to people, right? Which has not been the case in the past, right? I want to
Yeah,
smell that the room is clean. That's
yeah,
going to make me believe it. You just telling me about it or writing me a note about it is not going to convince me. But when I walk in, it's like whenever you walk into a room and you can tell, even if it's a non-smoking room, that someone's been smoking in it, right? You can just
hmm,
tell. You can tell when a room's clean. You can smell it. You don't even have to look at it. You can smell that chemical. And I'm
yeah,
telling you again, I think people are going to like that smell because it's going to make them feel better. It's going to make them feel more confident. I think you're going to have people around your resort visibly cleaning all the time, right? Even if they don't need to be cleaning, even if that counter is already clean, clean it again. Because I think people seeing, using their eyes, so all the senses, right? People seeing that you're cleaning are going to make them feel more confident. It's going to make them feel like, okay, they're on this. Hand railings, elevator buttons, all that sort of stuff. The high traffic areas they should be cleaning them all the time, right? And or maybe you place, it's like you know, for many years now we've placed little tissues in the bathroom so people who don't want to touch the door handles, you know, maybe there's a tissue or a wipe of some sort in the elevators so that you don't have to touch the buttons. One thing I was joking about recently is, you know, germaphobe used to be somewhat of an insult, right? I think we're all going to be germaphobes
no,
now.
now it's a compliment.
And exactly. And
Now
so
it's gonna be a compliment.
yeah, and so treat your customers like every one of them is a germaphobe. And what would you do differently? How would you convince them? And I think that is, you know, think about I'm just thinking off the top of my head right now, but everything they come in contact with, you want to be able to show them again that they're safe. And that's what it's going to come down to. It's not easy. I know it's easy for me to sit here in Chicago and be like, hey, all of you in the Caribbean, go fix your resorts. It's not going to be easy, but that's why I love consulting. Is I love talking with people about, well, here's the business. Let's walk through it, right? From the minute I walk in this resort, from the second I pull up, what's going to happen? How's the experience going to have to change so that I feel comfortable from the minute I pull up, before I even get out of the car, and then as I check in, and then as I go enter my room, and then as I come to dinner, or I go down to the beach, all of the parts of the journey. How are you going to make me feel safe? And again, I love walking through that with people to try to figure it out.
Yeah, it's true. You mentioned to be creative, and that brings me a memory of your conference specifically, where you put your terminology in a word.
Uh-huh.
It was a
Wiser, yeah.
wiser. So I don't have it right now what it means everything, but
Yeah.
for me it was like taking notes and saying, holy, but he is like, oh my God, this guy really knows what he's talking about. So if you don't mind, can you share a little bit about what wiser is, and
Yes, and I'm
how
actually
can we think about that creativity and apply it moving forward?
Yes, and I'm actually just to go and be above and beyond. I'm going to put it in the chat as well. So WISER stands for witty, immersive, shareable, extraordinary, and responsive. And I'll go through them quickly, but witty is essentially, it's not about being humorous. It's not about telling jokes. It's about using words in a clever way that are just a little bit nicer and more memorable. Take a look at every sign that you have on your property, especially signs that can be adjusted, that are either handwritten or using the little letters that you can change. There's always something you can do to make a sign a little bit more memorable. If your sign says, please wait for the next attendant, that's not memorable, right? But if your sign says something like, we can't wait to talk with you, hang tight, right? It's now a completely different sign, right? It shows that you're relaxed and chill. Hey, we're in the Caribbean. No, whatever. That's a very different. It's not changing my entire experience, but it is sending me a different kind of a message. So witty is really, especially about words, is just about being clever. Immersive means, how do you get the experience to connect so that every piece of the journey feels like it is integrated, but also how do you get the experience so that I feel it in my bones, right? And when I'm really immersed in experience, that's going to be the type of experience that I'm going to share with other people that I feel like is really memorable. Shareable is a little more literal than the others, but sometimes we forget that there's no such thing as an offline experience anymore, because we can all take out our cameras, our phones, and we can take a picture or a video and we can share it. So
Everybody does that.
Everybody does that.
Everybody does that.
So the question is your experience shareable? Is it something that I want to take out my phone or a video and take a picture of and share it with people? Or worse, the opposite is there something about your experience that you really wish people wouldn't take pictures of, right? Those are a good hint of something that you need to fix, right? And if you go back to the cleaning, I mean, we've all walked into a hotel room in the past and, seen some hints that maybe it wasn't cleaned as well as it should. There's a hair in the sink or there's something like that, right? And the problem is people take pictures of that and they share it. And so you have to look at it both directions, is how do I create something that people will want to share? And also, are there any parts of my experience that I don't want people to share, and let me fix them so that I'm okay? You should be willing, it should be okay with you that at any point during their stay, they take your clients or customers take a picture of anything and share it, and you should be proud of it. And that means you're creating a right experience. Extraordinary, we touched on before. It's about being a little bit better than ordinary. It's about getting away from so average, meh, as the millennials call it, and really just stepping it up one step so that you are so that you're better than ordinary. I like to say that the bar for customer experience is really, really low. We don't have to jump over it. We just have to step over it, because it's basically on the ground, right? So we just kind of take a little step over it and we can be memorable. And then the R, responsive, is really about once you apply the wise part of it, that's when you're going to start to see that people are talking about you more, and they're talking about you in a positive way. And it's really important that we don't forget to respond to people who are taking time out of their day to compliment us. A lot of companies, most companies have gotten the whole deal with complaints thing down pretty well at this point. And it makes sense that companies prioritize handling complaints over compliments. But the reality is, if somebody takes time out of their day to write you a compliment, and especially uses their social capital to do it, right, by sharing it in public, you have to respond. I always give the example, if I get off stage on a keynote and you come up to me and say, "Hey, that was a great presentation," and I just keep walking past you and don't say thank
Which
you,
you don't, by the
like,
way, and I'm a witness of that.
of what? Of
That you don't do it, that you
oh,
take a moment,
right,
you
of
stay
course.
there, we have a conversation.
Right, but if I just walked past you and didn't say thank you, what would you think about me then? Right? You all of a
Oh
sudden,
no,
even though I had just impressed you, you wouldn't think as highly about me anymore. And
no.
yet we do that all the time when people, again, social media, if people are leaving, if you're asking for comment cards and people are leaving positive comments and they had a great time and they leave their name, call them back up and say, "Hey, we're so glad you had a great time. We can't wait to welcome you back." I guarantee you that will be memorable for people because they're not expecting you to do it. And it's okay to show a little bit of love back. I mean, when somebody says something nice about us in public, they're sending us a little, a virtual heart, and it's okay for us to send a virtual heart back. And in fact, I think that customers, um, it they really, not only do they appreciate it, but it feeds their ego a little bit, right? It's like, wow, this company knows who I am and they liked my
Yeah,
post, like
yeah,
they feel, they stand up a little
yeah.
straighter,
They
they
stand
feel a
up
little prouder.
taller, a little
Yeah.
bit brighter. Yes.
And if you make somebody feel that way, believe me, you're going to be memorable. So that's what Wiser's about. And I have tons and tons of examples of each one of those letters and companies that are doing that really, really well. That's what I talk about on stage. That's actually what my new book is going to be about. And then we'll get into sort of how to implement it at your company. But those are the things to look for. You don't have to do all of them. It doesn't have to be witty, and immersive, and shareable, and extraordinary. Although there's plenty of examples that are more than one. And if you and the more you can stack on top of one another, the more memorable of an experience you're going to have.
Yeah. What about now in this era where, well, someone yesterday I was talking to them and they were a little bit concerned about, the face-to-face connection. Right now we are 100% virtual if it's not for the people that you have in your house and you're quarantined with, or because not even you go to the supermarket and people are avoiding the lines where cashiers are and they're going to the lines that automated payment.
Yeah.
um, Even though you have to even touch the buttons
I
even
was
if you're
going to say,
wearing,
see, I don't like
you
touching
have to do the same thing. I mean, you're wearing gloves, but you do have to touch the buttons and do all those kind of hand sanitizer. Exactly. So I'm just curious because I'm a firm believer that, when you are talking to someone and you're paying attention to that someone, you're present.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to work in customer service at the beginning of my career, and either over the phone or being present as in a retail spectrum, it was, it's challenging sometimes to be able to do that. And now I'm sure that not only for hotels, restaurants, yoga studios, spas, or even a single office, any business right now, we're wondering how we're going to receive clients, how we're going to be able to do this. Because even when you go to just give you an example, go to the post office right now is weird
Yeah.
because they have like a table outside and there's a barrier, and then you pass the things. It's like this thing is like a sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
uh
You're totally right. And here's what I would say. Because we've all been quarantined, our desire for human connection has never been higher, right? I mean, hey, we're all getting used to this virtual thing, but it's not the same as giving someone a hug. It's not the same as being in front of someone. And so when we get back to even some semblance of normalcy, I think that human connection is going to be more important than it was ever before. And so the answer is, okay, even if you are standing between a plastic barrier at the post office, it doesn't mean you still can't say, "Hey, how's your day going today?" Oh, it must be really tough, being behind that barrier all day long, or something. You can still relate to the person. And I think that that's what your customers are going to want. They're going to want to feel related to. And I've been picking up my groceries as much as possible, right? I order ahead and I pick it up. But I always, the person that comes out to the car and puts the groceries in the trunk, number one, I'm trying to tip them because it's not normally somebody I guess that you would tip, but it's like, hey, I know this sucks for you, but I roll down my window, and even though I got my mask on or whatever, I talk to them. And I say, "How's it going today? Man, thank you so much for your hard work. I know this must be really difficult for you." And you can still create that human connection because, man, people want that right now. And so I think the good news is that in your industry, there's tons of opportunities to do that. It's just that we've got to make sure we take advantage of them. And there was another example we shared on our show about a resort. I can't remember where it was. I think it was in Mexico because it was my co-host. And he said that they had trained the staff. I guess when he checked in, it was a big property, and so they put him in a golf cart and drove him to his room. And they had trained the staff so that no matter what staff member it was or what their role was, when that golf cart came by, they stopped what they were doing, they looked at him, and they waved hello. So the groundskeeper did it. There was a maid that stopped what she was doing, put the mop down, and turned around and waved at him. And literally every employee took the time to say hello and to welcome him to the property. That's amazing, right? And that's a completely different experience than you're used to. And you can do that right now. And especially because those people probably were socially distanced by definition, right? They weren't coming up to him. They just were stopping what they were doing. And so I think you're absolutely right on. And it's just about how do we do it in our new normal? And our new normal is going to be different, but it doesn't mean we're still all humans and we still want to connect with people. So find ways to connect.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and thank you for that amazing example. I mean, honestly, if I was your partner, your business partner, I will be telling that story everywhere. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't remember going into any hotel or resort that everyone actually stopped to say hello to me, or I mean, when you go downstairs, if someone sees you there, maybe the concierge will come and ask you if you need anything. It's something related to luggage or something like that, or they won't even bother. It's just like, because you're a business traveler, you normally are with a suit, with a suitcase, the computer.
Yeah.
So you're in your world, just tapping out, typing around, and doing the thing. You kind of forget about the surroundings. And most of the people think about that like you are totally immersed and they don't come to like bother you. But the reality is that it makes a difference. It does makes a difference when someone asks you like, can I help you with something? Do you need anything? It just makes you feel more at ease, at comfort, and like, oh, somebody's caring
Somebody
about it.
cares. Somebody cares. Yeah. I always notice, and granted, as a customer experience guy, I notice things that, that maybe other people don't pay attention to because I
I'm
pay
sure you
attention
do.
to all of it. But, I always notice, so I tend to be an outgoing, friendly guy. I say hi to everybody anyway. But I always try to notice in a hotel or a resort, when I'm walking down a hall and I pass by somebody from the housekeeping staff, I always try to notice whether they acknowledge me. Right? I mean, I'm clearly a guest and they're clearly an employee. And so what I would be doing if I ran the place is I would be training every housekeeping staff that when you see a guest walk by, say good morning, say good afternoon, just say hello, right? They're probably not going to stop and talk to you. That's okay. But that one gesture is a big difference versus what's the opposite? The opposite is I walk by, they clearly see me walk by and they ignore me. Now, how does that make me feel? Right? Now, Dan, I'm a little bit different. I usually say hello to them before they'll say hello to me, but that's not the point. The point is just you can train your staff for no additional money. You can train your staff to just say hello. New policy. Whenever you see a guest, say hello. No matter what role you are, whether you're the chef making the omelets or whether you're a custodial staff or whether you're, the concierge, you see somebody walk by, you say hello. That's an easy thing to do to create a connection. And what you'll also find is that it gives that person the permission to ask you a question or to, sometimes, the old joke about how guys don't like to ask for directions, right? But if I pass by the concierge and the guy or the woman says hello, I might be like, yeah, actually, hey, how do I get to this place? Right? It almost gives you that permission. It kind of breaks down the barrier a little bit, and it's easy, and it's simple, practical, inexpensive, right? So look for those ways where anytime you can forge an interaction that doesn't already exist. Another example that I really like is a lot of places have started, some places, not a lot, some have started where, 10 minutes after checking into my room, I get a phone call and they say, hey, we just want to make sure everything's okay with the room. How do you like it? Do you need anything? That's a great experience, right? Because chances are within 10 minutes, I've already decided whether I like the room or not and whether I need anything and whatever. And if you're proactive and you get me before, like, for example, because I travel a lot and speak on stages, one of the first things I look for when I get into any room is the iron, because I always have to iron my shirt, right? And sometimes there's no iron, right? And 10 minutes in, I already know if there's an iron. So if you call me and say, hey, is there anything you need? I'll be like, yes, actually, thanks so much for calling. I could really use an iron. And you've now just saved me the hassle of having to go to remember to ask and to call or to stop by the front desk. So I think that's, again, it's a simple gesture. I love it. I love when versus here's one where I think gets a little creepy. There's a couple hotels now that have started doing this like room tour where like they follow you up to the room because they want to show you where the light switches are and how to open and I'm like, okay, you know what?
That's a little too much for me too. Like,
yes, I can figure that out.
I think I can figure that out on my own.
It's not that complicated. Yes. I get what they're trying to do, and I think it's the right idea. But just that phone call is great. And other properties have started texting, which also is nice because texting.
I was going to say to you, because I was going to mention that part. I mean, we're talking about human connection and personalization and trying to take the individual characteristic in, as much as we can to provide an extraordinary experience. What happens with technology then? Because, right now, for example, we're talking about that there's not going to be any more menus anymore. That people are going to say, like, for your restaurant, let's have an app. The tablets on the room to make all your preferences and your orders and everything else, or even having from the moment that you are doing the booking. Now we're talking about like online, you're going to be able to plan ahead. And that's, for me, is a great thing. I mean, as a travel advisor, for me, it's a great thing that you can actually do that from your own computer, that you can actually, plan ahead everything that you're going to be doing. But then it's like I said, there's the technology and there's the human touch. So how's that combined in this world?
It's a great question. I mean, I think technology is a great thing. I often get also asked about artificial intelligence, chatbots, and things like that. And my answer is always the same, is that this is great stuff. Technology is awesome. It is never, in my opinion, at least in our lifetimes, it's never going to replace a human connection. It can make things easier for us. It can make the process simpler. I mean, who doesn't love the Bluetooth enabled keys, right? Where you don't even need a key anymore. You just hold up your phone. That's fantastic. How many times have I locked my key in the room? Way more than I want to admit, right? I'm never going to lock my phone in the room because I'm always going to have that. So I think these are improvements to the experience. But I'll give you a great example. And I don't like to call out brands negatively, and I'm not going to say the brand, but you're probably going to know. There's a certain hotel brand that is known for giving out warm chocolate chip cookies when you check in.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I noticed a flaw in the digital key system, which was because I signed up for a digital key, I never stopped at the front desk. And so I got to my room and I was like, oh, I didn't get my cookies. Right? Like, wait a second. And so it's like, but truly, it's a flaw in the journey, and they've got to figure out, I believe, for the people that use a digital key, there's got to be a different way to get the cookie, right? Because you're no longer stopping by the front.
You're no longer into the desk. It's the same thing that's going to happen with the welcoming cocktails. like to get
Exactly.
in there. Like
Yeah.
if you're gonna have, if you're gonna involve technology in your check-in process, it means that some people are gonna stop at the front desk, but others want to stop at the front desk. So what you're
Correct.
gonna do with that welcoming cocktail? Are you gonna deliver it to the room? Are you gonna have it there when they're gonna open and they're gonna find this nice, thing open? I don't
Yep.
know. Figure it out a
Or
way, but
it may be as simple as you're going to send them a text and say, "Hey, come on down to the so and so bar, and we'd love to buy you your first drink," right?
exactly.
But so it's to me, it's about how do you integrate in you integrate technology into the experience, but not at the expense of human interaction. So, yeah, certain interactions may go away. I think certainly the check in and check out process is starting to go away with technology. But I think most people are still going to expect that they're going to have some human interaction during their stay, and
Yeah.
so you want to keep the human interactions that really matter and that are needed for people. If you now replaced your concierge with an iPad, I'm not sure people are going to be real psyched about that, right? Because sometimes you have a complicated question or you want advice.
Yeah.
What show should I go see on Broadway? Like an iPad's not going to tell me that, at least not in the way that a human is. And
Yeah.
so be careful that we don't overuse technology to get rid of humans, because I don't think that is, again, my belief in our lifetime is that's not what customers want.
Romina is asking you, what do you think about how often should we speak to the audience through social media during COVID-19? Wow, that's a good one because
Yeah,
right now everybody has a life, especially at noon. Like,
awesome question. Awesome question. I think that communication is really important right now. I've written a decent amount about this. What people want right now is calm and comfort. And where are we not getting calm and comfort? We're not getting it from our television sets. We're not getting it from the media. We're not getting it from our government. Either side of the political aisle, it's not a political discussion. That's not where we're getting calm and confidence, right? So where else do we turn? Well, we turn to our family, except we're getting a little tired of them because we've been living with them for so long. So, okay, we got to go somewhere else. And so ultimately, one of the places we go to are the organizations that we do business with, that we know and that know us and that we trust, right? And so I believe that we as business people have the ability to project calm and confidence right now, and to make people feel a little bit better. I think you mentioned before the beach is waiting for us. I actually think what's interesting is that and just to we'll just because I love the debate, that doesn't bother me as much. If it's the only thing you're telling me, sure, but because I can't go to the beach right now, if you can, for example, make me feel like I'm there, I actually would probably appreciate that right now, right? And maybe it's I don't know, you do a time-lapsed, sunrise, sunset, the whole day at the beach, whatever video or something like that you can do, by the way, on an iPhone. You don't have to be fancy about it. But I think communicating with people right now is great. You don't want to pretend that everything is okay and that we're not going through a crisis. And you also don't want all your communication to be about COVID-19, because we are getting exhausted on this, right? And so I recommend to people that it's always better to over communicate than to under communicate. If you under communicate, I forget you even exist. And the only thing is that when you communicate, you want to try to be providing some value. And the value does not have to be economic. You don't have to be sending me coupons. The value may be that you just share a beautiful sunset with me, and that just makes my day, because it's cloudy here in Chicago and I'm not getting a beautiful sunset. So that's great. That could be great content. And if it's coming from your resort, empty as it may be, you still have a beautiful sunset. And I think that's great. So I'd be over communicating that sort of stuff. Mostly, I think with images, if you can, images and video is key. Hope that answers your question, Romina. If not, feel free to send a follow up.
well, we are actually running out of time, and I want to thank Dan for such an interesting conversation. As usual, I mean, at least for me, from my expectations has been exceeded. It's an extraordinary chance and opportunity to talk with you. I hope that everybody have been taking notes on your examples, speaking a little bit on their own brains, looking at what they're doing and taking it from your examples, what they can do moving forward. Um, and I keep saying moving forward, we're all looking for that forward. We're all looking forward to that forward. We don't know how it's going to look like. The reality is, but I am very hopeful that we're all going to find creative, witty, immersive, shareable, extraordinary, and responsive ways to keep the business going and to serve our customers and keep them coming. Dan, thank you so much for your time. And I will be sending an email later on today with information about Dan, all the offerings that he has, where you can contact him, how to follow him on social media. And just as a witness and testimony, he does answers back.
I practice what I preach. Yes. Well, thank you, Sorabel. It was very fun to be here, and thank you all for joining us today. And if you do have any follow-up questions, or you're not the kind of person that wants to ask during a live webinar, feel free to contact me on my website or on social media, and I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great weekend, Dan. Take care during this cold vortex. We'll keep talking. Thank you so much. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
Bye.